with explaining this motion. Firstly, what is newly democratic society? This is firstly, there was a civil war, but they finished such kind of civil war, and gradually they get like a system of voting, and like gradually they try to be like democratic country, but it's not completed yet. And secondly, how do we punish them? I want to explain. We don't believe that every person who did some like corruptions should be like this should get this penalty. Just such kind of like the institutions, such kind of like third party like courts can decide whether like how severe the situation is, and if necessary, the international court can intervene such kind of like the corruptions like judges, and whether how severe the corruption was, there is, so they can decide whether they give this penalty or not. So keep it in your mind. And firstly, I want to explain the how the why especially in new democratic country, the severe corruption is very bad, and they sometimes should be criminalized as this penalty. And secondly, I want to explain why how the change the world with this penalty with the to the such kind of corruptions of the governments, and it's gonna be deterrence of it. Our first segment is, and then I want to move on to the first segment. Firstly, I want to explain the context of the such kind of the world. Firstly, government is very evil actor because the people realize that they are very like taxed, and because they believe that the government is very bad, so they did like the civil war, but it have finished because the citizens want to get like their like freedom or freedom something, but governments don't answer their desires, so they are disappointed, and they make the like such kind of civil war, and so the capitalization of such countries are like they have the sense of liberation, and if the government did such same thing like the bad things, they have the character to against the governments again, and because historically governments deprived of such kind of all citizens' freedom, so they are suffered from such kind of government. And what happened if the severe corruption happened? Firstly, corruption means that the government gets the bribe from like such kind of the big company or something, and they govern as they like, not thinking about the citizen, just benefit, just thinking about benefit for the government. So they sometimes like have a relationship with like multinational company, and they prioritize their benefits or prices, and also and the citizens cannot get any like enough social security system, or because the governments are very selfish of them, so and so they have the mind against the government, and such kind of newly democratized country gets like again the civil war or something, and maybe we will say like they can like avoid with the voting of the government. Because citizens can vote the government, so citizens can choose such kind of government. But firstly, it cannot be happened because they have knowledge of the democracy because it is such kind of like developing countries. People have less knowledge, and two, even if they have the knowledge, the governments of such kind of country are very selfish, as I explained. So they try to save their benefits, and it's gonna be like there is like confliction between government and citizens. And how this is bad? Because if the conflict happens again, many corruption will happen again and again, and the citizens citizens cannot get benefit from the government, so they can be like very sad, the situation gets very worse and worse. And why this penalty is very important? Because this is the only way, because the democratic way doesn't work in such kind of country. So the government has to criminalize such kind of like government. And secondly, there is massive harm, especially in this vulnerable country, such kind of developing country, which may occur conflict again. So corruption is very, very bad things for the democracy, concept of democracy. And after that, we can solve this problem gradually. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Today we have QH on opening opposition, and I'd like to call on the first speaker of the opening opposition.
Thank you for honorable chairs. Unfortunately, the opening government has mistook about this motion, and in this debate, we should talk about how the death penalty can uniquely change the society or not. In this point, the previous speaker had the material of the previous speaker has no uniqueness of death penalty, so they cannot take this debate. And other rebuttals are integrated to our arguments. Then let me analyze this newly democratized post-conflict society's context. Of course, after the conflict, like civil war, their weak democracy. So they have no clear. They have no clear political structure or some code structure or something like that. And so this we think this can lead this can lead to unjust situation under the post authoritarianism. So let me clarify the mechanism. So as I said before, such country cannot have the strong political structure, so or the strong code. So this can be the vague result of the judgments, and also even such structure has exist, and the judges and also citizens have the antipathy to such people who committed severe corruption to the society. So under such a situation, this cannot be the clear or just and less justifiable cases. And also the Prime Minister has mentioned the third parties organization like International Criminal Code, but such International Criminal Code has no power to force the penalty to each country. So such analysis cannot be taken. So and then let me make a comparison to the government paradigm and also the opposition paradigm. And in the government paradigm, we think this penalty can lead to the glorification of such leaders of the conflict of conflict. So that is because also and to some extent the citizens have forced to believe automatically forced to believe them as justice or someone as good. So they read that please. So they and then this can such idea can raise to the after the society after the conflict has been over. But in our paradigm, we can force such people who have committed to force to work for the society, and then the citizens can notify them as in the citizen mindset that what the leaders have read was so bad thing or not justifiable thing. So this can be clear and healthily changes the mindset of the citizens. And so in these situations, and there are no changes of the consequence that the conflict has occurred. And so, as a form of regression, we can force them what they can do and for what the leaders can do for the society. So then this is a clearly better thing for and compared to the government paradigm. So for this reason, proud to oppose.
Thank you, leader of opposition. Now I'd like to call on the Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, honorable judges and ladies and gentlemen. This debate is not about like whether this corruption is democratically good or bad or something, but this debate should be about, especially in this context where like it is newly democratized and just after the conflict, why this political crime worth and necessary to be punished sometimes as a death penalty. And that's why we are going to explain in my speech 2 points. One, more principally, why we have to actually punish them sometimes as a death penalty. When can we punish them as a death penalty regarding the context of that. And secondly, we are going to further analyze the context, what kind of country we are talking about, what is the newly democratized mean, and what is post-conflict, and what kind of character of the people that we are talking about. Based on that, we're going to explain why this corruption, severe corruption, is actually leading to the massive societal harm that we are talking about, to the extent that we have to sometimes punish them as a death penalty, as a government. And thirdly, we are going to explain why, after taking plan, having the system or threat of the death penalty, why the rate of corruption would actually decrease. Before that, I have some rebuttals. So, previous speaker said, they said like because of the existence of the death penalty, the glorification of the government will happen. To analyze this, this is not unique at all, because anyway government have like some kind of criminal justice system, or sometimes not just targeting this kind of politician. They can actually sometimes do death penalty to those kind of other severe like just criminal like serial killer or something like that. So that's why this like glorification of government wouldn't happen uniquely in their paradigm, because they have that criminal justice system that citizens could actually fear of. And secondly, even if it is kind of sometimes unique, we believe there is no impact or no harm whatsoever. We believe why glorification is government is so important. We are not talking about like why it should be democratically good or bad or something like that. We have to talk about the individual and societal clear harm in the first place. Secondly, they said they can fight if there is no death penalty. They can actually like it is democratically good or something like that, but we don't think so, because one, it is that. Let's see the context here. Like this is the newly democratized. That's why citizens actually doesn't know any kind of like how to actually express their opinion, like how to vote or something. And secondly, I think there is asymmetry of information occurring, something like that. Especially this kind of corruption existing. We are going to talk about that in second argument. Firstly, principally, why we can punish them. When can we punish? Like we believe that like the government purpose of having the criminal justice system is to be retributive and isolative to those who actually do and who actually could have a threat to the massive societal harm. That's why this penalty can be done when we can assume and be sure that thousands of people's lives are threatened, or be sure to be deprived in after or right now. And that's why, for example, in Japan, like they've done or they lead that sometimes people to the thousands of lives of death. And that's why we as a government would actually want to stop that kind of harm no more, or to actually retributive to that person who did the massive harm to society. And that's why we can sometimes do the death penalty, or whether it is controversial or something like that. And secondly, we're gonna explain the applicability, why, especially in this context, the government has to actually punish this severe corruption. What is the context of this debate? What is the context of this country? Is 2 points. One, it is just after the conflict, which means government is so vulnerable. They have no money, or they have no budget, they have no enough military or power to actually govern the society, or unify the society in the first place. And secondly, they are newly democratized, which means their democracy is not completed, and that's why we are saying, we said like citizens have no actually capacity or power to actually express their opinion and like resist to the government by the democratic process. Like, for example, like there is a voting and violences. Like even though they have the voting, but they would actually run into like violences because they don't know how to actually express, but they know how to actually resist by violences because they are after the post-conflict. And that's why we believe, that's the context of this debate. And what will happen if this kind of severe corruption happen and then why can we criminalize those kind of action? Later, please. Well, what kind of corruption we are talking about is that kind of 2 points. One is like kind of bribery, because we are talking about the severe corruption. Like, for example, like multinational company comes in and they will actually assure that company, that politician, like tons of money. No, thank you. Tons of money, and they will actually allocate their governmental like policy to actually help those companies, and that's why no money or no budget or whatsoever or medical treatment something wouldn't actually trickle down to citizens, because politicians have no incentive to actually take care of those incapable democratic citizens. Okay.
What is the difference between the lifelong imprisonment and this penalty?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that. Second types of the corruption is that like they can secure the position, because like they can fake the number of like percent of votes they can by like having the like network between the politician and make sure that they can actually secure the position, and citizens wouldn't know that because there is an asymmetry of this information, and also citizens have no any way to actually express that or to know that kind of thing. And why this is bad is that there is no mercy for the citizens, because they cannot actually get any medical treatment or any food and any water or whatsoever, which can be the infringement of the fundamental human right. Or secondly, they can actually lead to the societal disorder, like mindset of, my partner already told you, they have a mindset of conflict. They know they can overturn the government by the violences, and that's why they have no sense of incentive to some radical will protest violently and they can kill the thousands of people. And we believe, compared to that, after taking plan, we can actually use that death penalty as a severe deterrence to the politician who is a profit seeker. We believe our side is better. That's why we propose.
Thanks, Deputy Prime Minister. I'd like to call on the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Today's opening government only talk about the importance of the punishment, but this debate should be about what kind of punishment is true, what kind of punishment should be taken in the specific case of the newly democratic post-conflict societies. And we believe that given the situation of the forcement to the death penalty, or given the situation of the vulnerability of the government, we say in that kind of situation, death penalty shouldn't be taking place because of the irreversibility of those kind of things. For those reasons, we want to say that this debate should not be taken place. I'm going to explain 2 things in my speech. Firstly, I'd like to explain where this penalty should be applied. Secondly, I'd like to explain practical consequences, what kind of punishment is true. the independent liberal opening government. They talked about the importance of the punishment because they killed thousands of the people. That's why this penalty should be taken. But they never explained to you that why if the death penalty is the formal way to be as a form of the punishment in the first place, we can introduce the lifelong imprisonment if they want to really isolate it from the society, or if they retribute to the society. Yeah, we are happy to make them in lifelong imprisonment and forced to work for the sake of the society. That's why we say no uniqueness coming from the opening government regarding the death penalty in the first place. And they talked about the applicability to this motion by the two reasons. Number one, the government is vulnerable, so they are going to introduce the death penalty. But the question is, given the situation of the vulnerability of the government, we say how to ensure the fairness for the decision in the first place. Because given the situation of the death penalty, the separation of the government, separation of the three powers should be important. But given the situation of the newly democratized post-conflict societies, that we cannot guarantee the true system of the democracy in the first place. Maybe some people can force them to conduct this penalty because people have discussed for the people who commit severe corruption, and we cannot confirm the fair what kind of facts are likely to occur. That's why we say in that kind of situation, given the situation of the vulnerability, the death penalty is not true form in the first place. And they say that capacity to reflect, that the citizens do not have a capacity to reflect opinion, that's why they are going to justify this penalty. But this is not true in the first place. Because in that kind of situation, if the people do not have a capacity to reflect their opinion and they are going to use the violence, we say isolation is already enough to prevent those kind of things in the first place, right? Because what the citizen is going to do is simply to intervene the politically in the first place. That's why we say separation is enough to conduct in the first place. What we're going to today is that irreversibility is so severe. That's why we're going to oppose this motion. Okay, let me explain the circumstances. Firstly, where this penalty should be taken. We say, given the ambiguous, if there will be ambiguous result, we say this penalty should be prevented. Why this is ambiguous? Firstly, they're trying to justify because ICC can intervene, that's why it is no problem. But this is not true in the first place, which is already my partner told you. International Criminal Court do not have any power to force country to conduct this to conduct any punishment for the country in the first place. Maybe ICC can decide fair decision for the country, but the country do not have any burden to reflect the ICC opinion in the first place. That's the reason only form to reflect the opinion is the opinion by the newly democratized post-conflict societies. That's why court can decide what kind of punishment should be introduced in this specific context. Why is it so bad? Because given the situation of the newly democratized post-conflict societies, there is only weak democratic system. Maybe the government cannot work well. Maybe government made a mistake made a misdecision for the society, and we cannot guarantee the power to separation of the three powers. Maybe administration or the legislation can force the jurisdiction to conduct the disparity given the situation of the citizens have already discussed for the society. That's why they are going to justify, they are going to be conducted by the disparity easily in the first place. And if people are antipathy for those kind of people, people are going to be punished as a form of disparity. But the thing is, we cannot guarantee the true point of the what is the true consequence for the post-conflict in the first place, right? Because simply the trigger of the conflict is we cannot guarantee the what is the simply given the situation of the post-conflict societies, the trigger for the conflict is very simple. For example, simply because of the conflict of the region, directly is the situation where the government are going to be collapsed. But simply because of the population by the majority, those kind of conflict are likely to happen, right? That's the reason we cannot guarantee the severe interest for committing corruption to the country. That's why we say we cannot guarantee the intention for committing those kind of corruption. That's why we say that this penalty should be taken in this specific court. Secondly, we say that in the specific post-conflict societies, it is difficult for us to guarantee the consequences in the first place. Because given the situation of the post-conflict societies, there is less evidence, but citizens can force them to conduct this penalty. That's why we say this decision is likely to happen, and that's why this penalty should be prevented. Secondly, practical consequences. We say no, thank you. We say in that side of the house, we can ensure the lifelong imprisonment for the people who committed severe corruption to the government in the first place. Because in that side of the house, what we see as a problem, no, thank you, is a irreversibility of the death penalty.
Please take.
Why this penalty is so bad and life imprisonment is not that bad?
Reversibility. So that's why we say, given the situation of life imprisonment, if the retribution can be conducted, yes, we're happy to make sure to conduct the life imprisonment country. And this is much better compared with this country, right? Because in that type of house, that they can contribute to the society for the sake of the society. If the actor is so bad, we can ensure the punishment for the sake of the society. They can make production in the prison, and they can contribute to the society within the prison and the outside of house, right? That's why we say on the outside of house, even we can ensure the level of the punishment in the outside of house, and this penalty can sometimes make a wrong decision, and if this penalty can conducted, this is reversible. That's why we say in the outside of house, this penalty should be taken place, and lifelong imprisonment should be paid as a form of the punishment.
Thank you, the leader of the opposition. Now today we have Nagoya B of CZ, and I'd like to call on the member of government.
Today we support this motion, and first, an opening government that was the vulnerability of the government or how harmful the corruption, and but we say we analysis more the context of the citizens and focus on why conflict easily happen again. So in my speech, firstly, I will repeat to the previous speaker, and second, I'll talk about argument. Must be, he said, conflict happen from the oppression by the government, but that occurs unreasonably press the citizens. So, and corruption is admitted by most of them that is bad thing. So they will admit the punishment. So conflict not occur. A little, even if a little severe, they don't have so strong incentive to have a conflict again. So second, I'll talk about my argument. First, how death penalty is justified. Second, the detailed mechanism and corruption cause the conflict again. And third, after taking plan, corruption will be vanished and at least decreased. I'll talk about one by one. First, when death penalty is justified, it is when social order is severely invaded. For example, people who murdered several people were punished by the death penalty. And why that's so severe penalty? Because they can't recover, and that is irreversible. So what this is saying to this situation? Because democracy, we can get the democracy again if they happen conflict, but ending conflict is very difficult. They hold hatred to the opposite side, and they compromised, and they change or hold their belief, or yes, and some and in many cases by the many deaths. In the end of the conflict, they need many deaths and so on. And so, stand the democracy after conflict, we have many sacrifices. So, even if we can get a democracy again, but have irreversible sacrifice, and that is why this penalty is justified. And second, how the detailed mechanism of the corruption causes conflict again. In the context of newly post-conflict society, so citizens do not forget the hatred or the antipathy for the opposite side. So easily they discrimination by the race or gender or the ethnicity. So if a major antipathy occur from the government exists, that easily happen war again. For example, if imagine one person from one ethnicity unreasonably prioritize the people who are the same ethnicity. For the antipathy from the other ethnicity or the group will rise, and they have the memory of the conflict, and they hold hatred and being democracy, but that hatred flashback easily, and that conflict again easily. So that is the detailed mechanism of the conflict again. And third, why corruption, after taking this one, corruption will vanish at least decrease. Death penalty, that's uniqueness is the irreversibility and absolutely. Everyone fear to death. So, but life imprisonment, at least we can live, even if we do corruption. So, as a vigilance, the death penalty is the most efficient way to make fear the people or work as a vigilance. So that make people to stop corruption strongly, and stating corruption as a punishment of the corruption is death penalty is become an evidence of the end of dictator or the plain politics. That become also become the state of the intention. We make our democracy all of the people. So for these reasons, we support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, member of government. Now today we have COVID and closing opposition, and I'd like to call on the member of opposition.
Thank you, judges. We have three things to talk about. We have two things to talk about. Firstly, what is the characterization of newly democratized post-conflict zone? And secondly, why it lead to backlash? But before moving on my argument, I have one refutation to the previous speaker. She says the death penalty is sufficient for the corruption, for the people who involved in corruption, but this is not true. Because after finish the work, people get the incentive to vote. This is because people become more sensitive to the society. So people get some incentive to vote. So on that occasion, those who involved in corruption naturally disappear because they can't be voted for. So thank you. So let me move on my argument. Firstly, what is the characterization of newly democratized post-conflict zone? Firstly, in the former government, they exit people so easily. In the government, corruption exists. Only some people have the authority, so they easily exit those who are against their politics, and in that sense, they oppress the citizen and others. So even if the government changed, they are always fear of being executed. So their mental condition is too unstable. And through the conflict, a lot of infrastructure are destroyed, so people cannot acquire accurate information. People cannot acquire accurate information because the wire of internet is also destroyed. So second argument, why it led to backlash? Because of such a lack of information infrastructure, people may assume that the execution is unjust and too severe. This is because people cannot understand the fact that he or she involved in corruption. No, thank you. So people assume that people think the execution is unjust, so the new government lost trust from citizens. And secondly, the degree of corruption is not decided. Even if international court decide who involved in corruption or not, their incentive is vague. This is because some people are executed.
With those broken network like wire or something, how can you assure the capacity of the citizens to know the real situation of political corruption and vote those politicians out based on that information?
The partner will answer. So let me continue. While some people are executive, but those who promote such a corruption is not executive. So it is unfair. This penalty itself is against democracy because this is invasion of human rights. And the third party think it is unfair. And there is a moderate party in South Party. There is a moderate party. There is a moderate party. So some of the such moderate party think they compromise and try to cooperate into newly democratic government, but some people get have some rhetoric propaganda, and such people can cause some rebellion to newly government. So it lead to back to the last situation. So it is really harmful. It is really harmful to newly democratized society, because newly democratized situation is unstable. So only a tiny of rebellion can cause a huge result. So it is really bad for society. For this reason, we are proud to oppose this motion.
Thank you, member of opposition. I'd like to call on the governor whip.
Honorable Chair, so I'd like to do two things in my speech. Firstly, I'd like to talk about how this death penalty to these corrupted people are going to uniquely make a better democratic society for this country. And then secondly, I'd like to talk about how that one case is directly crashing to the opening opposition, and then I'd like to talk about how my partner has characterized this country much better than the other teams. So I like to move on to that first point. So firstly, that opening opposition came up and said these criminal justice system in these countries are not good enough to assure that evidence is enough for them to get punished by death penalty. However, we didn't quite understand why in any other sources they can make the country much better, because even when they are newly born democratic country, they need to grow up and gather much more experiences through these procedures, and it is not right to just deprive that those system of deciding what is deciding and examining the situations, but rather we should let them decide, and they'll be like stronger, like in their words, stronger court existing in the country. So we didn't quite understand what was the problem, and neither they didn't give us any solution to that. And then they came up, and the deputy leader of opposition came up and talked how death penalty is too much for as a punishment, and lifetime imprisonment is not. However, my partner has said in the third point in her speech, really beautifully pointed out that this irreversibility that they said as an harm to this death penalty is the key to deter more people being corrupt and doing this behind the back of citizens, however, when as they said, lifetime imprisonment is the only thing that can punish these people. That is not either enough, as they said, and it'll give more space for those people to maybe they can get away from this corruption. And furthermore, it is important for as a government to state that this corruption, these severe corruptions are worth this penalty. And even when that is not conducted, however, it is very important for governments to say this severe corruption is the worst thing that could happen in this country, given this context of newly democratized country, and saying that although there are other options, there is another option as such thing as death penalty, but we compromise as lifetime imprisonment, stating that as a government is making people seem that this corruption is maybe not the worst thing that's happening in the country. So it is very important for our government to have this stance. Right. And why is that very important in this debate? Is we've given that as like newly democratized post-conflict society, there is much room for improvement, and anything anything that can stop this improvement and break social order that has just begun to be created in this country is so much the worst thing and we've proven that this is the only way and this is the most effective way in this debate. And secondly, so we've given this like citizens of this country have so much fear of happening that conflict again. So we've given another context that this conflict is not maybe for the only previous government. However, also the conflict between ethnicities and that people have still like kind of stigma in amongst each other, among another, and they can and that is very unstable as a government. As a country, so that is when it gets so much worst case to have severe corruption in this country and And of course, the closing opposition gave this characterization of like people are being enthusiastic to the politics. However, that's the reason why we need to make the best, most democratized decision in this process to ensure that people feel safe and be motivated to improve the country. For these reasons, we're proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Group. I'd like to call on the opposition group to conclude this debate in 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will talk about mainly two things. First, I will talk about is it necessary to conduct the death penalty itself in order to solve the political corruption. This is the main case from the opening government. Secondly, I will talk about why our extension is so important. But before that, I will take clarification and rebuttal to the closing government. So first point out, they talked about because the death penalty is irreversible, so that's why it is unjust. First, it's extremely irrelevant, this motion. They didn't consider about the specific context of this point, right? Secondly, it's assertive. So second is about the rebuttals. So they talked about the ethnicity will broadcast it, and because of the corruption, some backlash will highly likely to happen. First, we are happy to hide those kind of ethnicity in the first place, it's not so problematic. But secondly, specifically in this context, because the people have a massive incentive to care about the politics itself. What do I mean by that? If the corruption is revealed, the ethnicity itself is not so emphasized in the first place, rather than the fact of the corruption is emphasized. That's why the people don't care about the ethnicity in the first place, their analysis is unrealistic. So secondly, necessity of the death penalty in order to solve the corruption. So opening government talked about because it's necessary to do the death penalty, because the voting cannot work. But unfortunately, it's not true. I will say this voting system is an extremely workable one. Why is it so? First, contextualization and characterization of the people. People in the past conflict zone, they will be oppressive regimes and they will get the oppressive politics. That's why they have an extreme incentive to change those kind of politics in the first place. Meaning that now they have a strong incentive to care about the politics itself, right, Mr. Speaker? So that's why people have a natural incentive to go to the vote area in the first place and vote. So, secondly, as a consequence, of course, opposite candidate had a massive incentive to point out the corruption. So, because they want to get elected in this society, right? So that's why if the opposite candidate point out and exaggerate the corruption, of course, the people don't vote for him. So that's why natural selection will highly likely to happen under our paradigm in the first place. Their vote system is extremely workable. As a consequence, of course, the corruption will vanish. So secondly, we are happy to give the proper punishment to those kind of person who conducted the natural corruption. Why it can be workable as a deterrence? Simply because they will fear about the 20 right imprisonment or 10 right imprisonment or fires itself, right, Mr. Speaker? So that's why they will have a natural incentive to not to conduct the corruption itself, yes.
We have already given to you the mechanism of the mutual corruption to secure the position of the politician itself. Why opposition can point out? Have the incentive to point out the corruption.
because they want to get elected, right? Secondly, why our extension is so important. But before that important clarification, in this context, of course, some people are radical opposite party is existing in a war zone, and moderate opposite party is also existing, and extent is existing, right? And in this situation, in order to prevent the backlash, in order to get integrated of the moderate opposite party, meaning that who think that democracy is not so bad, but in the past they will on the side of the radical opposite side, integration of those kind of characterization of the people is extremely necessary, and we are the only team because opening government just talked about this is extremely unfair and it is extremely instinct the people, so that's why backlash will happen. They didn't consider about the reaction of the people who is actually in the post-conflict zone. That's why we clearly fulfill this point, right? So second clarification, they talked about as long as there is in order to prevent social harms, the death penalty should be conducted. So that's why if clearly explained about the backlash will happen, we can win this debate, right? So why our extension is so important? Two contributions. First, we clearly explain about why the death penalty clearly instinct the citizens, and citizens feel that it's unfair to conduct the death penalty. The opening government also talked about this point, but their premise is about misdecision will highly likely to happen, right? But unfortunately, it's extremely unrealistic because they talked about the international court can intervene or something like that. So that's why, regardless of the misdecision, I will explain that why people can get against the death penalty itself. Three reasons why. First, people think that it's unfair just because the corruption they have to get died because it's natural that if you kill other persons, you will be killed, right? It is the people can easily accept this point, but we clearly talked about because people will against death penalty in the first place. But secondly, they will naturally think that it's against the democracy itself because the democracy, they believe that democracy is an entity to protect the human life, and this is the most abhorrent cases of infringement of this human right itself. So that's why people extremely instinct and have a feeling that which is against the people's, which is against the government in the first place. But secondly, the criteria is a little bit arbitrary in the first place because some people get money. Okay, so as a consequence, what will happen exactly? They didn't talk about the reaction of the people. We clearly talked about 3 points of characterization. First is the extremely radical parties who try to get the backlash of those kind of people. And second is the moderate people who think that democratized is not so bad thing, but still in the past they are side of the radical people. And what's the characterization of the people is about they still have weapons, right, Mr. Speaker? Because this infrastructure is destroyed and the security is not fulfilled in the post-conflict zone. As a consequence, radical party can use as a propaganda this kind of fact, but just because the government is unfair or injustice and they don't try to us or something like that, and they will exaggerate as you shouldn't or citizens shouldn't believe that those kind of government. As a consequence, of course, moderate opposite party will easily sway to the radical parties. As a consequence, because they have ability to some extent have weapons or something. So that's why terrorism is highly likely to happen under our paradigm, or backlash or conflict again, or highly likely to happen. Sadly, because the neutral party who think the democracy is best things also have an incentive to not trust their own present government. I think it's leads to the conflict against. We are very happy to oppose.
文字の解釈ぐらいが妥当だと思うけど。そうやっぞ。
シェアそうやんぞ。
シェアそうやっぞ。
あ、ね、私の勉強のために見学をしたいと思います。
お伺いします。ありがとうございます。
お伺いします。
あ、お伺いしております。
あ、
すでに。
オッケーっていう。
はい、そこは大丈夫です。
はい。
難しいな。
違うそう。
これ録画されてるんですか、これも。
してる。 アップするかどうかは考え
公開するかどうかです。
公開しないでほしいです。公開
見よう。
限定公開でしょ。
印象にないけど。
瀬村。
まあニトさんは変わりかな。なんかニトさんクローズでなんか1より2より2より1より2を上げる理由がなくて4はかな。
トフはここがクローズ。
はい。
4が決定。1、4決定って感じ。
4はいいかなっていう。
はい。
なんかでもなんかな。みんな都合がいい感じな気がして。
リグハーフやろ。
オープニングハーフやろうかな。あるっちゃあるけど別に俺も佐藤荘に説得されれば変えてもいいかなとちょっと一瞬迷ったというか結局 OG のケースってそのリトリビューションしか立ってないと思うねんけど、そのプラクティカルって多分どのチームあんまり立ってなくてリトリビューションなのは分かんねんけど結局人を死ぬところまで証明しないといけないんじゃないかなって。
そうですね。そこをすごいオポジションからポイントアウトされてるじゃないですか。
オポイップがちょっとオポイップ言ってねえよ別に。
オペップ言ってないですよ。
ね、その雰囲気を出した
そうです。
俺が欲しいアナリスト別の英語で出したからそういうことだけよ。
雰囲気。
でもなんかあれじゃないですか。
ポイントアウトされてないこれは。
されてない。なんか、人殺したわけじゃないから人たちがバックラッシュしてアゲンストガバメントするって言ってるだけで
人殺して、それでなんかバックラッシュのあれってなんかディスペナリティ OK になります。なんかラディカルなやつらなんかモデレートなやつをどんどんディスペナリティとどんどんラディカルが台頭していきます。結局なんかラディカルがなんか残っちゃうからもっとやばくなりますっていうふうに
いやなんか
さ
何やったかな、そのトイップがそれの1個前の説明でなんか人殺したわけじゃないのに死刑にするの
それは言ってましたね
って言ってて、でそれは OG のポイントアウトっていう形ではなくって
自分の
伸ばす形で出してるから微妙。
そっか、別に法則言ってるけどなんかリバーシブルは関係ないよねとかっていう指摘だけはなんか覚えてからあったんで。
よくわかんない。
佐藤荘結局とりあえずじゃあ佐藤荘になんか一旦戻って斜めの差を説明してもらおうじゃあ。
結局なんか僕がこう2じゃなくて OG をちょっと下げたのは、なんかその頑張って PM、DPM でなんかいかにそのひどいかっていう行為を説明してくれてたんですけれども、いくなんかなんでこれがデスペナルティである必要があるんだろうってところまでがなんか、そこを最後のところが足りてないような気がして、なんか
それはそう
正しい
なんかその時に
肯定感を上げていく
だから特にこれは応援の貢献かなって取っちゃうかもしれないんですけど、なんか O がその POI でなんかディスペナリティとライフインプレゼントとどう違うんやって話に対して結局なんかディタレンスがあるって1個だけなんかその一言ぐらいでしか最後ちょっとポロって言ってなくて、なんか結局じゃあそのライフインプレゼントではなんかそんなになんですかね問題解決なくてディスペナリティで解決っていう話は結局でもなされてないなと思って、どんだけそれは
分かった大体分かった王子の話は仕様の話をして
ちょっと意味わかんないなってなりました。仕様は
大体一緒、その会社その認識は大体一緒。ただ
仕様は
佐藤荘は正しい。
もう話してあげてくださいよ。
仕様はなんかOG のなんかボーティングとか結構ノットワーカブルってところに結構ボーティング普通に働くよねみたいな話だから、普通にデモクラティックなもので今やばいなんかOG の前提ってなんかやばいやつがおって コラプションするやつ、やばいポリティシャンがおって、なんかやばいやつがその収めてることでハームを受けるから、それがディザープトですってことだったじゃないですか。でそのやばいやつがハームを受けるってところに対して、やばいやつがその我慢するってところに対して、別にそのやばいやつだとしたら、なんかそんなにその政権ってなんか続かなくないってところをなんかなんですかね、結構理由を分析して返してたかなと思って。
そんなに汲み取れなかった。
その汲み取ってないですか。だからその一人のポスト
っていうかさ、続かなかったらパニッシュしなくていい理由ってなくない？
そしたらなんかそもそもそのなんか
いやだからそもそも OG のプリンシプルの部分のケースってそもそも悪いことをしてそれがまあその島では証明されてないけどリトリビューティブに悪いからっていうのがプリンシプルの部分や、はい、それって別にそのプラクティカルな帰結には関係なくて、こいつが悪いことをしてそれが死に値するかデスペナルティに値するかどうかっていう話には関係なくない。そのプラクティカルの部分が OG が立ってないっていうのは同意するけれども、別にそこは切れてるからといって別にそれは使用の優位性にはならないのかなと僕は思うんですけど。お気を
オタク感出さなくていいですか？
僕は思うんですけど。
あと普通にもうそれはそうですけど、あともう一個なんか2つ目に別にリタレンスパワーに関してもデスペナルティじゃなくても普通に彼らみたいなもしそんな政権にいたようなやつだったら10 years とか20 years のなんかものだったりピアしてなんかやらなくなってある程度リタレンスあるんじゃないみたいな話があって、
それも正しい。
正しい。
正しい
けどこれは聞いてないですか？
だからやったやつに関してどうするかっていう部分にはアンサーしてない。やったやつがおったとしてこいつらをデスペナルにかけていいんかっていうそのなんかリトリビューションの部分は残るんだよやっぱり。でそこは別にその島で証明されてないだけでそこそこやばい、そのすげえバジェットとかなくなってそこそこインパクトはでかそうな雰囲気がする程度までは証明されていて、っていうことを考えると、確かに
そうなんか、
確かになるほど。
ちょっと良かったけど
これからいるとかじゃなくて今までやったことに対してリトリビューティブな観点を見ると OG の方が確かにそのリトリビューティブなところに対してその罪その話に値するでとこまではってとこは言ってて、それに対して別にリトリビューティブな点に関しても10 years とかで十分だよねとまでは言ってないってことですか？
いやまあでも処理もできてないから使用のサブスタンティブの評価次第では上がるか使用が上がるかなと思ってかクロージングが上がりうるかなと思ってね。
サブスタンティブの評価
サブスタンティブなものはない。サブスタンティブなものはない。
上がらないんだよクロージングは。
でその唯一残すといえばこのバックラッシュの話ですよね。でもなんかバッ
クラッシュは誰が誰のためにバックラッシュするのかよくわからなかった。
はい、それはそうです。なんでその
なんか良かったけどね。
リベリオン
発想的にはメンバーからサブスタンシーとしろよとしか。
ヒューマンライトの話もしていいけど。
良かったけどな。
ヒューマンライトって保育でちょっと言っただけなのかな。
伸ばしてない伸ばしてない。だからいい感じ、もうちょっとちゃんとしろよって感じだった。しよう。
誰が悪いの？永田が悪いのか。
永田のせいやな。
永田の教育か。
永田の教育が悪い。
そしたらそうですね。評価される。なんか普通にそんな気がした。そんな気がしてきました。確かにリトリビューティブに関しては
結論としては結局ラウンド全体としてそのプラクティカルにそのこのポリシーっていうかその試験にしますっていうことによってそのどうなるかっていうのはどのチームもよく分からなくて、そうなった時にそのオープニングの2つは一応そのなんか帰結に関わらないそのシステム的なダメさっていうのを、それぞれ O はまあそのアンビビュアスだからダメっていう話と、OG はリトリビューション的にこういうやつらってインパクトでかくてっていう話をしているので万死に値するんじゃないっていう話をちょっと島でどのリトリビューティブかどうかのアプリカビリティまでつなげて言われていないけど、分かる話ではあったと。
確かにこの OG のバーデンをちょっとなんか全然果たせてないじゃんって見方するならば仕様になるかもしれないけどそこはさちょっと
別にしようっていうかクロージングからのポイントアウトもなかったし、
良かったわけでもない。
特にサブスタンティブも、クラッシュは誰から誰に
それはそうですね、クラッシュはもう評価してないですけど、
蓋をすげえ開けててもなんかよくわからんし、
結局そのじゃあその行われたことに対してそれが死に値するかっていう議論をしてた点に関して王子を評価するってことですか？
ロール層
ロール層で
ロール層
全然ロールされます。いや、やっぱ難しいな、ジャッジっていう
典型的なあれやね、ディベーターがこう執着する点とジャッジがここだけ残るやんって異なるそので言ったプリンシプル言ったもんが違う。
そうお前ちょっと言ってたやんみたいな。
そう金銭に触れるプリンシプル言ったもんが違うと
なんか確かに OG もそんなになんかねそれをこう、なんていうかなこう意図的にこれが大事なプリンシプルだっていう形では言ってないから
モーティングがどうのこうのでなんかシティズンのキャパシティがどうのこうのの話が一切わからんかった。あれどういう話？
それ誰のどこOGですか？なんか
ゴイップはなんか理解して反応した方がするけどお前理解できるのかな？
なんか多分言いたかったのはそのポストコンフリクトソサエティでなんかそんなにこうなったばっかりで慣れてないし、なんかなんならそのガバメントからちょっと統制をされてる。
それはわかる。
その時になんかどうしたらいいんだろうドギマギっていうぐらいの
話を
してだからなんかちゃんと多分そのなんですかね、みんなで徒党を組んで今回の取り締まりこれダメだからその他のやつに入れようぜみたいなそういうなんかディモクラシーによる反抗っていうのが起こりにくいよねっていうことを言おうとしてるのかなと思いました。
なんかデモクラティカリーなそのアゲインストの仕方がよくわかんないから
パワーによるアゲインストでパニッシュにしてよっていうことを言おうとして、だからその仕様はいや言うて分かってるよって
なるほど佐藤その理解力やばい。
でもそれだと多分ちょっと汲み取りすぎて
なるほどね。
そこまで言えてるかったらそれはちょっと分かんないですけど、
DPM のイントロが良かったから
確かにいいとこ分かってる分かってる。
これ
イントロだけ分かってるか。本文はまあ
プラスティカルに引きずられてしまった感じがある。
そっかこのイントロを評価してあげるイントロにイントロの話
少しと
まだです。
イントロの評価に基づくその河合君の話を持ってってあげるなら評価ができる。
CG は
CG はなんか新しくなんかリタレンスの話とコラプション下がるよっていうのがなんか新しいことかなと思ったんですけど、ジャスティフィケーションに関してはなんか結局そのあんまり全キャントリカバーってだから何みたいなそのあんまりオリジンから深められたりしなかったですし、リタレンスに関してもリタレンスなんでこうアンティパシーをカーでなんかマストカムバックいいの
これはコンセンサスに至るのか書かないといけないんじゃないですか。
1、2だけじゃ分かんない。だから多分動かしてない。多分ソフト動かしてないでしょ。
確かに。
それでなんか
じゃあ1はもうこれでいいね。
ちなみに1を2より上にしたところってやっぱりちゃんとそのアンビギュアスちゃんと働かないのとこを評価していくんですか。
LO も言ってたけど DPM がのたっちゃったからな。
LO なんかすごいですね。
LO は
LO の話も分かったけどな。
なんか No change in consequence What leaders can do both sides。
なんか
何も分からんかったんけど。
なんか LO でなんか一ラインだけ私が分かったのがそのリザルトオブジャッジがアンビギュアスやっていう話だけ分かったの。一ラインこのウィークリザルトオブジャッジって言って
ウィークジャッジって
でしょウィークジャッジってあるでしょ。
でも僕ここ何がプロブレムって言ってるんですか。
い ね、でなんかおそらくでなんか一番最初のイントロでミステイクって言ったの。ミステイクオブデスペナルティだと言ったの。ってことはなんかそのミスチャーフォースチャージみたいなことを言ったんやな。
お察しがいい。
それ OG が単純にこう文字を見間違えてるのミステイクじゃないですか。
あ、そういうこと？
確かに
OG ミスHow this penalty uniquely damages society or not
じゃあ違いました。
だからこれ DLO か
あ、じゃあ
デスペナリティについてなんかコートが
いいよ関係ない。
なんか幅がアンティパシーって話ってどう評価したの？なんか僕全然ここなんかキーがこもってることは理解できなくてっていうかなんか言ってたんですよ。
どっちのが
OPPO です DLO でなんか幅がアンティパシーが People's Resist に結びついてそれがなんかトリガーオブコンフリクトなんです。
分からん。
全然どういう秘訣で話そうとしてるのかっていうのは評価してないんですけど。
いやなんかやっぱりさその政府がまだバルナブルやからちゃんとそのコンダクトちゃんと精査できるかどうかわからない。もしかしたらこのコラプションの人にやらされた人がいるかもしれないじゃんっていうだけ。でもなんかさ DLO 聞いててすごい謎だったのが ICC の話が謎で ICC の説明 DLO が何て言ってたかっていうと、デスピをさせるほどの力はないけどフェアな決定をしてそれは各国反映しますって言ったの。じゃあこれ
しないって言ったら
しないって言いました。
フェアやけどしないって言った。
する義務はないから結局 ICC がしろっつっても国はなんかそれをインプリメントしないよねみたいな。
でもフェアな決定できんじゃんって思っちゃった。
でもシチズンが失敬でレジストレーションも、まあせやなっつってせやわっつってでもインストレーションも失敬
で試験が出るやつ。あ、じゃあ分かりました。あ、そう言いたかった。
点数つけんの？
聞いてこよう。
3と4はあれですか？頑張ってそのなんでこのデタレンスっていうのがOG なんかデスペナリティやる SST がないよってところに対して反応しようとした。
スピーカースコアはつけます。
じゃあ3位と4位も自動でつくけど。
見ますね。どっちでもいいっすよ、3位と4位は。どっちもよく分かんなかったから。どっ
ちでもいい。
こいつが頑張ってたから、こいつで3位にしようかな。
絶対3位に聞いてくるじゃないですか。あれでいいかなとか。
間違えちゃった。
いいよ。
もういいよ、よく分かんなかったって言えば。どっちも同じぐらいよく分かんなかった。3、4。
まあでも
ベストスピーカーは DLO やな。何点にします？
78、9か。高すぎますか？低すぎる？
78。
あ、違う。
78か。だよな、ご祝儀やご祝儀。
あ、そんなに高いと思ってないですか？
そんなのと思ってないの実際と。で、そこそこ普通にデスペナルティの話よりにニューリーデモクラタイズドにちゃんとこの関連付けながら喋ってたから、78でいいよ。79でもいいぐらいだと思う。
じゃあ79にしましょう。
で、
ご祝儀。
79、76ぐらいですか？で、75、78みたいな、ここ
75、78。
76、78ぐらいですか？わかんないですけど。
76にするとね。
あ、言って。
あ、違う、5やん。
プラス5で。
分かりやすいでしょ。
150足し算すればいい。そこまでの計算ができるのであれば150に達するぐらい。
確かに。まさきが77。
頑張ってたけど。
78？
いや、
そんなになんかリップそんななんかあれって言ってましたけど、どう評価したんですか？
あんまり良くないわけではないけど、なんかこなれてはいたけど。
リップと DPM で言ったら DPM
とりあえず
が良かったでしょ。
オープニングが上がります。
オープニングが上がります。
はい。
それだけ伝えてもらったら
スライド作っといて
組めます。77、8？
77。
7ね。
でもバックラッシュ意味わかんなかったじゃないですか。
76にする？
いや、77でいきましょう。だから
あ、まあめでたいしね、クオファイ。希望は74。
24。
わからんかった。
わからんって書いてある。エグゼクション、エグゼクティブって言ってるのが多分エグゼキューション。
エグゼキューションなんですよね。
エグゼキューションか。
あれ本当にわかんなくて。エグゼクティブってなんだろうみたいな。ずっとそれで理解が止まってる。
エグゼクティブの。あ、エグゼキューションか。天才だな、君たち。
に出没するからね、社長たち。取締役たちが。
エグゼクティブアンジャスト。
ラボより75、75とかでよくない？
ガバウィックは、ガバウィック、
いや。
でもなんかあれじゃないですか、一応その応募に対する反論として、なんかその、いや別にそのニューリーディモクラタイズサイトでなんか応募はアンビギュラスだから無理って言ってるけど、それでもなんかある程度優秀なコートジャッジがなんかギャザーマッチエクスペリエンスするからなんか意外とストロークプレート作れんじゃないみたいな話は一個反論として言ってました。それはでもなんですそれがなんかでもそれを全く評価する。それどれぐらい評価できるんですか？
気持ちの問題だったら何？
そうか、気持ちを入れるなら76にしよう。
76ぐらい。
75やと一緒になっちゃうよ。
じゃあ70。
もう1点先。
もう1点先。
MO？
はい。MG。
MO あげる？
MG も、いや、まあ嫌じゃあ75な。一本75にしよう。75にしよう。トトの気持ちはまあ、
ごめんな。
捨てそう。
これでも
コンセンサスやな。はい、トトサインや。トトソ。
母音をする。
ここや。
いや、難しいな、惑わされるな、騙されてます。